All right, Max and anyone else watching this, I had to take a break after reviewing War on Gaza and Nat Turner and do a little bit of a lighter book. I actually forgot I had this one. This is Himawari House by Harmony Becker. Super fun book. I had read it a long time ago. Forgot it was in a luggage that I think I brought to Rome. Reread it. I'm glad my library renewal process is not too harsh, so I haven't gotten charged for this yet. Here nor there. Himawari House. It is an awesome story about the primary character, now I think is how you'd say it, who is a Japanese American. She was born in Japan, moved with her family, and then decides to go back to Japan after basically living an entire American childhood, and has a deep desire to reconnect with the Japanese roots. And she moves into, for 1 year, Himawari House, which has some other friends that she meets. The two of them that are here, one is Singaporean and one is from Korean. And the whole book is really, there's stories of jobs and learning the languages and the culture, and them all kind of finding their feet as adults and who they are, and a wonderful story about friendship too. So high level, that's the story here. You get love, you get all kinds of fun stuff. So into the patented scoring system. I feel like I've explained this enough times. I'm not going to do it again. So let's start with the characters. I'm never going to get good with this either, but here we go. Just float it across. All right, characters. How are we doing character-wise? Characters, I give it an 8. This is a super... I think this book had amazing characters. So you can see, again, the main character and, like, kind of... They do a great job explaining her as a human being, as well as, like, you know, wait, this is even harder to do. I should just start looking at it like this. Images like this, where you see here, she sees this, like, split personality version of herself. Like, a big chunk of her arc here is she almost able to call herself Japanese, like, racially and originally when she was born, she's Japanese, but, like, has she become too American to be that? And you get all these different slices of that. You get these wonderful little snippets of her dealing with her mom, which kind of highlight that. And the two main roommates, you also see a ton of their personality come out. I'm trying to, like, flip through and find some of the pages that I think illustrate this well. And I'm not ever going to improve this system of putting little pieces of paper in here to find stuff. Yeah, this is a good one. So, like, this is another good one. Like, so one of her roommates, again, she's from Singapore, and she's, like, teaching them, like, some cool traditions about Chinese New Year and, like, this, like, noodle thing they do. So you get to, like, learn a ton of their own backstory. The other roommates from Korea, I'm not sure if I bookmarked one I'm going to find super easy. But yes, here's another good one with her. So you get, like, some really deep, cool stories. Like, the three main roommates make up the core story here. And they all have a ton of backstory, which is provided, that just really gives them texture and nuance. Like, some of them were running away from, like, broken relationships, also, like, just a feeling of malaise and like, not belonging or something not right in their life. They get emotional. There's a lot of crying in this book, like, in a very good way. You also get, like, second order characters that really get developed. I'm going to try to find one quickly. Like, there's a couple love interests that end up, like, living within the house. They all get a fair shake as well. And there's like an older lady that lives next door that you get to spend a lot of time with, who is awesome. Maybe I should color code these at some point. Maybe that would help me out. Yeah, like there's like this older lady up here that you get to understand her backstory as well, and just some of the parents of the characters. This is probably not the most interesting thing to watch ever, as I'm stumbling through trying to find the exact pages, but they do a great job with characters in this story, and they develop them all well. They all have really good backstories, and some of even the secondary characters in their orbit also get involved in like meaningful ways. You really feel like you get to know them. So overall, I really like the characters, and I've already shown a lot of the art of this book, but like I personally, again, I've said this many times, the art score is very objective. I think that I really just like how this is drawn. Like, I think it's really beautiful. They capture a lot of, and I'll talk about this in the history culture section next, but I think they capture lots of little stuff really nicely, from like the food to like the what they should eat suggestions to the blankets. They have so much of the Japanese culture you kind of get through these like really nicely laid out pictures. At the same time, this is just a master in like knowing how to do funny stuff with graphic novels. Like you can see they change the styles pretty frequently. Like these faces are so good. And you get like really also beautiful detailed stuff of some of the festivals, some of the art, some of the like buildings, like the food scenes I always think are like really, really strong. Again, the only really knock I would have on it is that I think that, there could be a little bit, I don't think I would have to see something truly different probably to make me think that adding color doesn't help to the art. And this also hurts the readability, which I'll say, it's kind of why the readability scores a little later. But overall, I thought the art was beautiful. I like love all the creative facial expressions. And super strong score, I think, on the art side. If you were doing black and white, I think this is about as good as you can do from my perspective. I just think everything looks accurate, but also stylized and really beautiful and really fun. And, for as long as this book is, they like mix it up a lot too. History culture, I give it a 6. It's not giving you like a precisely important moment in like Japanese history, but you get like a ton of just like the culture, and not just the Japanese culture. You also get like, they're living with a Korean and Singaporean. You get stuff like the K-drama series, which is shown here. Something I also we'll talk about more is like the language is just expressed really well here. You get languages across in really beautiful ways. I'll talk a little bit more about this, but you guys might have noticed at this point there's like a bunch of different languages almost on every single thing. So you get to kind of see visually some of the various languages being used, and I think it adds to it in a really artistic, beautiful way, as well as giving the history and culture. It reminded me a little bit of like Habibi, which I'll have to review at some point too. But just like using the the style, you see things like, markets that the old next door neighbor goes to. You see some traditional stuff that people wear in the various cultures. I just thought that they give you not like an extremely important moment in Japanese history, or Korean or Singaporean for that matter, but they give you a lot of like little moments of like living the life. And that's really what I think this book is about, is these friends, and also like what's it like for them in their like day-to-day kind of experience, eating, resting, dealing with the cold. Again, for the main character, you get these great scenes like this too, where she like, is like at a convenience store or a grocery store, and she gets called out. She's working there, but I think she gets called out for like not knowing Japanese well enough, and kind of being, I guess, called sort of a slur, like sort of like just not a real Japanese person, and like having to grapple with that. There's just all these little moments that feel very like illustrative of the culture. They show you some festivities, like some, again, very special attire for certain days of the year. Certain foods are eaten again on certain days. So I think they just do a great job at showing the history and culture of living at this time and place, in a lot of the day-to-day dynamics that, I thought was really cool. I've been to Tokyo for like a week, and also, I guess, I've also been to Singapore and Korea. So a lot of what they showed, I feel like I didn't spend a ton of time there, but like there were little bits and pieces that like kind of fired some neurons of like, oh yeah, I remember seeing things a lot like that. So like I've referenced this many videos past, but I think if the goal of some reading things like this sometimes is to travel there without having to travel there, at least getting a certain sense of the place. This book really nails that. So I think the history culture score was great. They didn't, tackle a hugely important topic, so I don't think I could give it like a 10 out of 10, but I think it still gave you a lot of good stuff. And a lot of the pages here are more about the characters, so you're not getting the history every single page kind of thing. All right, now, so these were the strongest suits of the story. I think the hardest parts for me were the readability. So I like this book. I've read it twice now, but the book almost clocks in at 400 pages, and the black and white nature of this and just how many characters, they developed the characters, but I think both times when I started rereading it, I did have moments where I was almost confusing who is who. Like, I think adding color, like you can see here, it's a lot easier to distinguish who's who with the color on the text. Like, you can even as simple as something like looking at shirts and stuff like that. Like, but like when you're first introduced to characters, certain angles, I just sometimes like was having to like reread and make sure I understood like who is who, or like, sometimes it would be like a cousin of the main character, and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes they didn't have a lot of exposition for like what you were jumping into. Ironically, as long as the book is, I did have a little. I think those were probably my biggest things, is like if there was color and a bit more differentiation visually with as many characters as they have you learn very quickly at the beginning of the book, I think it would make it a little less confusing and a little bit more readable. And also just the pure length of the book, given how much verbiage is in here, is also something that I think drug it down a little bit for me. Like, I really liked this book, but I think both times I read it, it was broken up over like multiple days of reading a chunk at a time. And again, to me, that's readability, right? If it takes you 5 different days to reread something versus like you can't put it down once you pick it up, I think that's like kind of the core score. Finally, the X factor. I think that this is like a slice of life thing, not totally innovative there. I think the main innovative parts that I really liked were how they did just some of the like expressions and like of the art, again, the faces and the funny stuff, but then how they really interwove language in here. She has a ending section all about how she was really trying to do justice about the use of accents in this book. So she doesn't shy away about how a Korean or a Singaporean speaks English, and she also shows the different characters of like every language, Korean, Japanese, and it just interweaves in a really cool way. You see some Singlish for a bit, which is like, I believe I'm saying that right, it's like a Singaporean dialect, kind of like a version of English they speak in Singapore. So I thought for the X Factor, the coolest parts of this book were just how wonderfully they visualized the character features, especially facial features, and it looked always very like aesthetically awesome. Patent that too. And also like loved I'd never read a graphic novel that had so consistently made a decision to have the language component be so highlighted in every single text bubble. And just to lay that out, I can't imagine how complicated that was to like make it all look still good and readable while layering on like almost 2 translations onto or 1 translation and then whatever they were saying in English on top of every speech bubble. I mean, again, truly like a commitment. And I think that, again, not quite as novel. I think it's not trying to do something like creating its own universe or like magic or like first of its kind to do like something about the medium itself and how it's telling it. But I love the language part and the facial expressions. I thought that was really interesting and unique. Overall, really strong score, a 6.2. Definitely, I would say a high recommend. So I'll leave it there. Fun stuff, and see you next time.